to summarize, if we want to practice liberating love that transforms lives, it begins by getting to know those people. And then the solutions arise from our engaging in relationship. I'm going to sit down now. You didn't really think I wasn't going to do that. I want to take us back to our Time for All Ages story. There's a reason that this story won awards. It deserves really paying attention to the wisdom that it has. So towards the beginning, CJ asks or complains to his Nana about why they have to wait for the bus in all this wet. CJ's Nana replies, "Trees get thirsty too." Now that seems like such a small thing for CJ's Nana to say until we pause and think about it. When she responds by saying, "Trees get thirsty too," she's teaching TJ a couple of things. First of all, I hear her saying, "Boy, you are not the center of the universe." Many of the things that happen in the world are not all about you. They're for someone else's benefit. And I also hear her saying, "You are not so different from the trees. You have needs, and so do the trees. And by extension, so does everyone." So, also a little side note that I just think is so brilliant. Nana leaves room for CJ to make his own discoveries. She gives a little hint, but you might remember CJ says, "I don't see any straws." Now, in the same situation, I would probably, and I think a lot of white middle-class parents in particular, would probably start to explain the science of how trees are straws and draw up water from the ground, from the earth, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but by Nana's making a different choice and just giving a hint and trusting, showing dignity, to trusting the wisdom and the intelligence of CJ, she gives him the opportunity to have that discovery himself later on. So I also want to point out that CJ does need some lifting up. He needs to be honored in this way. It's clear in the story that there are other people, friends of CJ's, who have access to more wealth. When CJ sees his friend Colby climb into a car with his dad, again he asks or complains, "Nana, how come we don't got a car?" And I hear him asking a much bigger question, something along the lines of, how come some people have access to conveniences we don't have access to? A question that perhaps has an additional layer of, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with us that we don't have that too? And Nana's response sets the stage for the rest of the story and for a liberating love that is transformative. She emphasizes the good in what they do have access to, which in this case is a bus with a bus driver who knows them and who shows them love and care. I say this sets the stage for the rest of the story because most of the story consists of their ride on the bus and the people they are in community with on the bus. Now, I don't want to romanticize poverty. In fact, that's especially what I don't want to do in this sermon. But I do want to draw attention to the difference between owning a car, a piece of private property that is generally used to transport people who already know each other, and riding a bus, a shared good that puts you in contact or keeps you in contact with other people in your community. So whether we're literally riding the bus or not, we can make an effort to be more bus-like in our living. Now, I don't see any evidence in the story that CJ's friend Colby's dad is driving him to volunteer at the soup kitchen, and in fact, we learn from the story that CJ's friends don't volunteer, at least not at the same soup kitchen. But even if Colby was volunteering at the soup kitchen, he wouldn't have the transformative experience on the bus on the way to the soup kitchen that is so important for CJ. That bus is full of the diversity of the human community. There is a man in a suit and tie and a man whose body is covered in tattoos. I mean, if you remember the illustrations, he even has neck tattoos, y'all. There's an older woman with gray hair wearing a headscarf and teenagers listening to music on a pair of headphones. There's a blind man with a spotted seeing eye dog who gets on the bus, and another man with an acoustic guitar. These people on the bus going up and down, up and down. The people on the bus, come on everybody, go up and down. These people on the bus are people of diverse ages, races, ethnicities, abilities. And through the journey on the bus, CJ, who I pointed out is questioning his own inherent worthiness, experiences a community of people who are diverse and who are flourishing with dignity in diverse ways. This transformation is highlighted most clearly in two parts of the story. One is when CJ asks his Nana, how come that man can't see? His Nana's response deftly humanizes and dignifies the man, while gently, and by gently I mean almost imperceptibly, calling CJ out for his rudeness. Do you remember that moment? She says, boy, what do you know about seeing? That's the deft call out that lets CJ know he maybe shouldn't have said that, while using humor and playfulness to call him out in a way that doesn't shame him for the natural curiosity and unguardedness of childhood. And the statement is quickly followed by her saying, some people watch the world with their ears, which honors the blind man's way of experiencing the world as equal to anyone else's way of experiencing the world. And I wonder if you see what else is happening between the lines in that moment. CJ, throughout the ride, throughout the story, is questioning his own worthiness because of the things he doesn't have. No car to ride in, no bike to ride on. And his Nana, by honoring the dignity and worthiness of the blind man, is also lifting up CJ for his own inherent dignity and worthiness. And again, as she did with the tree drinking from a straw moment, without spelling it out too much. She doesn't give CJ a lecture about how he is just as worthy a person even though he doesn't have a car to ride in or a bike to ride on, which I'm sure many of us can attest to. If you've tried doing that with a child, they just find it annoying. As many of us would, right? If our deepest insecurity is met with a distanced explanation of how we really don't need to worry about that insecurity. So the next moment of transformation grows out of that first one. CJ's Nana saying that some people watch the world with their ears not only dignifies the experience of the blind man, who responds by complimenting her perfume and later by telling a joke about his blindness. Did you notice that? Do you remember that? How when CJ's Nana encourages him to listen to the music from the guitar player, the blind man whispers, to feel the magic of the music, I like to close my eyes. Now, obviously, he doesn't need to close his eyes. That's the joke. He's giving an invitation. And first Nana, and then CJ, and then even the spotted dog close their eyes. And it's in that moment of closing his eyes, that moment when CJ watches the world with his ears, experiences the world in a new way, that he does feel the magic of the music. and it transports him to a world full of beauty. It says in the story, in the darkness, the rhythm lifted CJ out of the bus, out of the busy city. He saw sunset colors swirling over crashing waves. He saw a family of hawks slicing through the sky, saw the old woman's butterflies dancing free in the light of the moon. CJ's chest grew full, and he was lost in the sound, and the sound gave him the feeling of magic. Now, as soon as CJ and his Nana get off the bus in the rundown part of the city that houses the homeless and their soup kitchen, CJ loses touch with that magic. In some ways, it's a fleeting moment, though I think it's also a seed moment. And he does find it again with a little nudge again from his Nana, who reminds him to be a witness for what's beautiful and points out a rainbow in the sky. Remember the rain that CJ was complaining about at the beginning of the story? No rain, no rainbow. CJ's transformation and his ability to be a source of love, liberation, and transformation for others when he arrives at the soup kitchen comes from his embeddedness in the world, from his participation in pluralistic community, and from the modeling and mentorship of his Nana, who, like a Taoist sage, teaches CJ without him even noticing that he's being taught, teaching him how to celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. Now, as UUs, we are called to transform the world, to heal historic injustices, to dismantle racism and other systemic oppressions, to work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved community where all thrive, to make that beautiful city for all, to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation, so that every person's inherent dignity and worthiness is honored. This transformation begins in nurturing relationships with others. It emerges, as it did for CJ, from our embeddedness in our world. It emerges, as it did for CJ, from our participation in pluralistic community. Civil rights lawyer, founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, author of the best-selling book Just Mercy, which has been adapted to a film, and I might add the Ware lecturer at our very own UU General Assembly, which Dale is encouraging you to attend. Back in June of 2017, Bryan Stephenson has emphasized that, quote, to change the world, we are each going to have to find ways to get closer to people who are living on the margins of society. It's actually in proximity to the poor that we hear things that we won't otherwise hear, that we'll see things that we won't otherwise see. The things we hear and see are critical to our knowledge and our capacity to problem solve. So as you go through your life, close your eyes to what you think you already know about transforming the world, so you can feel the magic and the music of the world, so you can be a witness to the world's beauty and possibility. How the butterflies in an old woman's jar can fly through the heart of a child. How the rain brings the rainbow. Open yourself up to the wisdom of those in your community, especially those who are suffering. Close your eyes to what you think you already know. Open your eyes to other people's suffering and to other people's wisdom, especially the suffering and wisdom of those whose life experiences are not like yours. Liberating love gets close, because it's only from that practice of closeness, of loving connection, of respect for another person's inherent dignity and worthiness that healing transformation can emerge.